part two. I want to start off by saying that I do not think the Christian religion is evil. I think that the Essenes, where Christianity came from in northern Israel, what we know as Israel, the northern Palatine region, I think that Christianity, it was co-opted by the Roman Empire because it basically was a really great brainwashing tool to convince people to become sheep, to become easily manipulatable. When the Roman Empire started, they were a mix of Etruscan paganism and Greek paganism, and they adopted Greek philosophy and the Greek senatorial system, so that they can really kind of build upon that, and they sort of wedded it with their Etruscan indigenous beliefs with the Greek to create this powerful empire. But as empires grow, they really need to learn how to learn how to pacify people, and they were invading so many different tribes and regions and people with their own indigenous practices. They couldn't say, oh well, we're Roman and Etruscan, like you're Etruscan now, and people are like, no, I'm German and I worship the German Empire, the German ancestry. Like, they had so many challenges of trying to divorce people from their ancestral practices, because ancestral practice makes you sovereign. You can't control somebody who can stare into the well of their ancestors that goes back almost 1,000,000 years. You cannot control somebody. That is a tremendous amount of power and knowledge. Ancestral practice allows you to go into the well of your ancestors to see human behavior over time. And you are able to see manipulation a mile away. You don't have to say anything about it. You don't have to do anything about it, but you sure as heck can see it. And so in order for the Roman Empire to subjugate all of these new peoples that they were invading, the Celts, the Bructi, the Suebi, all of the tribes that were around Rome, that were around Italy at the time, they really were invading a lot of new peoples, and they needed to divorce them from their ancestral practice. And this is where Christianity came upon the stage, and this is what Constantine did in the 300s. To break the backs of Europe. But he did so by destroying his own indigenous practice. Like, you have to remember, like, the Romans destroyed their connection to their ancestors as well in order to do this. They loved empire more than they loved themselves. They loved power, they loved money, and they loved control more than they loved their own bodies and their own ancestral connections to their bloodlines. They loved it more than their families. They loved it more than the land. They loved it more than anything. They worshipped empire. That you have to remember that these people who we call colonizing, who are colonizer energies, they love empire more than they love connection. And little beings like these gnomes, the dwarves, the little Landvitier, they are just to be mowed down in as impeding the progress of empire. And so what Italy did was they sacrificed their own indigenous Etruscan practices, and they adopted Christianity. And one of the reasons they adopted it is because the whole tenet of Christianity is to be kind and to be loving. And how better to pacify great amounts of people is by threatening them at sword point and through pains of death and torture, you will be loving and kind and obey me as your shepherd, the Roman Empire, or we will destroy you and we'll kill your families and we'll torture you. And sometimes they just even tortured people just for fun. Just because, like, they had, like a little statue in their backyard, like it was so bad. Like the amount of brutal torture for the last 1500 years in Europe regarding ancestral practices was so violent, so brutal. You had families torturing other family members. You had children being kidnapped and ripped away from families. You had women being brutally murdered on public display. You had, like in Germany, I can't even tell you, there were regions of northern Germany. They burned so many women. They had to go to Turkey to get wives. They killed all their fucking women. Like, I'm sorry. I can't believe people don't have heart about this. Like, if you do your ancestral practice, you see this. You see your ancestors. You see what they did to each other. And you see what this love of money, of empire and control does to people. It makes them evil. That is the real evil. It's the love of control and power over connection and family and joy and creativity and love and nature, like all of that. And we don't realize how indoctrinated we are. Like hundreds of our generations of our ancestors bought into this torturous system, and they propped up Christianity as this solution to the evil of the world when they were actually using it as their own puppet. I mean, I feel for the original indigenous people of the Palatine regions, because they just wanted to live in peace and be peaceful and loving. And their religion ended up becoming this awful, like just the amount of atrocities. When I look back, I can't even fathom it. And so when I've spent 30 years sitting with my ancestors, crying with them, seeing how they tortured each other, seeing how they killed each other, seeing how they destroyed each other's mind and they gaslit each other, and the psychopathy and the narcissism and the wars and all of that. I've seen it all. And I sit with them and I try to counsel them and I heal them and I cradle them and I love them. And I look even further and I see my ancestors who are powerful, connected to the land, who understand the power of the land Vitir, the land spirits, and the Tomten and the Nis. And the little spirits of the land come out and visit me wherever I go. It doesn't matter what land I'm on. They come and they visit me and they love me. They remember me. And I remember why I'm here. I'm not here to change the world. That's empire thinking. I'm here to comfort the people who have been hurt. Because a lot of people have been hurt through religion and spirituality. And I just want to say to any of you European shamans out there, like European pagans and witches and people who are just wanting to understand your ancestors, what you're doing is the most powerful thing you could ever do, is to return back to the ancestral memory, to heal your ancestral bloodlines, to love them, to help weed out this darkness of empire. And I'll talk a little bit about that in Magical Circles.